welcome back to the Unraveled and Rising podcast, where we talk about healing identity and the messiness of becoming the person we were meant to be. I am Michelle with these wonderful, incredible co-hosts, Terry and Kimberly. Hi, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
In this podcast, we're not trying to offer quick fixes. We're not trying to pretend life isn't pretty and it's messy. We're here really to talk about the truth. We're here to talk about trauma, triumph, and most importantly, stories. Our stories, your stories. We're here to share stories. And that is what you're going to see from us the next 3 episodes. We are going to share our individual stories, one story per podcast, the next 3 episodes, to really instill in everyone and all the listeners out there how important our stories are, how important it is that we're heard, how important it is that we share those stories, because when we do that, we talk about our collective wisdom and our collective experiences together, it heals, it helps, and we can be a community of trying to assist each other in any way we can and providing hope and love and kindness. Under mine today, you'll see I have loving energy under my name instead of business strategist, because I'm like, that's what I'm going to be today, which is very exciting because Terry is going to share her story today. I'm excited about that because of the fact that Terry is somebody I look up to, very much so. Her and I are kindred spirits in the way we care about homeless and those underserved populations. Kim is too, but I know Terry more so in that regard. But I'm excited to hear her story today. I'm excited for you guys to hear the story because it's a really great one. And I'm really here for it and excited what lessons we're going to learn today. So Terry, please take it away. Go for it.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I just wanted to add to a couple of things that you said. And that was how all of us, I think we think sometimes we're different from each other, but there's so many things that we have in common. And I think sometimes we can sit under our own type of shame sometimes. I know for me, this is the story, and feel like we're alone out there and that we don't have something to offer somebody. And it's those very things that we have to offer other people. And there are so many others going through the exact same thing. It might look different, but it's not, and I think that all of us can learn from each other. And I really just truly believe that when we can talk about that, it not only lifts off the weight from each other, but it gives us some more freedom in our life, and improves our connection with others, right? So that's what we're here for, and that's what I am just super passionate about. Is just really normalizing things that even when they aren't normal, and some things that happen in our life are not normal, but we do what we have to do to move past it. And the one thing I want to add to that and to everyone listening is that the way that you responded and the way that you did move past it was exactly the way that you needed to at that time. And there's nothing wrong with it. So you can just free yourself now from that.
Yes.
I think it's us that keeps us in that cycle, right? So anyways, I'm passionate about this and so excited to have you guys listening, whether you're listening live or you're listening to the recording. It was 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago in 2019 and it really was happening before that. I was feeling some unfulfillment in my life. And I thought that it was just that what was wrong with me? I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, and I wasn't feeling happy in my life. And I had a lot of things to be happy for in my life. I had 4 amazing kids. I was married. My professional life I was doing well professionally, and yet I was feeling off. And maybe all of us have felt that at one point in our life. But I started to reflect on what was going on in my life. And it wasn't until September of 2019 when I was faced with a divorce. Well, actually, it was a separation. And it was kind of funny because in 2018, I started going to therapy. And my therapist had just said, I would see how invested the two of you really are in your marriage. And we were talking about our marriage. And he kind of mentioned me shaking things up a little bit. And at that moment, it took me about 6 months to really understand what that meant, but I knew that something needed to happen. We were continually growing apart, and something had to happen. And I had asked for a separation, and just to see if, if he stayed with family, or I could even do that, if what would happen. And I didn't really think that when he decided to take me up on that offer, that we would end up looking at, a divorce. And it was probably a few months into the separation that I started to feel like things weren't changing. And so I started to have to ask myself questions, and wonder why I felt like I needed to stay in this relationship if it wasn't serving him or myself, if that makes sense. And I just want to put this out there, that what I learned in my own journey is that it's not just one person, that it's actually the collective. It's actually both of you, and there's parts of both of you that probably are just not aligning anymore. And I'll just be quite honest, we weren't good for each other. It wasn't that we didn't love each other, and I had to realize that. It wasn't that we didn't love each other the best that we could, and that there wasn't love in a relationship. It was the best way that we knew how to love each other. It was how we were taught. It was things that we saw in our own life and in our childhood, and we couldn't give more than that, if that makes sense. But I also realized that we can either accept that, or we can begin to discover our own worth and start to move past that. And when I started to do that, I got into a recovery group at my church. And it was crazy how all of this happened. I lose my job in May of 2019. I meet Kimberly through a mutual friend, and I start working with a hospice and home health company. So I end up in this little car all by myself. September, I end up in a separation. And 1 month prior to that, I started going to a recovery group. And in that recovery group, I swear to you that I thought everybody else was crazy, and I was not. And that everyone else needed to be fixed, and I did not. I was perfect. It was all of your guys' fault, right? Woe is me. And then I just started to learn how I was a victim to my own life for a very long time. And that wasn't on anybody else. It was on me. And so this really glaring mirror began to look back at me, and I started to have to take some looks at Terry. And when I started to do that and started to asking questions of where did this begin, I was looking for freedom. I realized through that program how much my parents' relationship and how much their divorce and the impact that had on my entire childhood. So when we talk about trauma, I didn't realize that I had trauma because I had two wonderful parents that actually really did love me. But at a very young age in my life, I had two parents that couldn't figure out their own marriage and were actually having a lot of things going on in their own life. And during that time, weren't emotionally available for me as a child in those developmental years that I needed. And so there was this sense of safety that I didn't feel as a child, not because it was an intentional thing, but my parents were going through their own stuff. My mom was struggling with facing a divorce and things that were going on with her and my dad. And that is if any of you guys have gone through divorce or been in any kind of relationship, you know how much that can take out of you, how much energy that can take out of you, whether it be, oh my gosh, I've got two young girls and my mom, and how am I going to provide for them on my own, right? How do I become the one person that's here with these two girls. And I didn't understand that at that moment, but I started to take on the weight of my parents' marriage and wondering, what was it about me that my dad couldn't stay with us? And then what I tried to do was I tried to do everything to make my mom happy, whether it be she loved a clean house, and I'd make this little checklist of doing these tasks for her every day, and wanted to just make her proud of me, right? And so when she would come home, she couldn't see it that way. My mom had things the way that she had wanted them done in a particular way. And so she didn't know what she was doing, but she would call out things that I didn't do the way she wanted it to be done. And so I started to take things really personal as a little girl because I didn't know, right? And so I wore the weight of my parents' marriage and the weight of all of that stuff on my shoulders for a long time. And then I end up in my own marriage and then facing the same thing, right? Being the same type of wife my mom was, giving, and not receiving a whole lot back. And then starting to feel this resentment, right? Mm-hmm. And I have to be honest that I think I was checked out probably a few years before the divorce actually happened. I just didn't realize it yet because I was so used to the pain of that. And it wasn't all pain. Like, I don't want to paint this picture that the whole relationship was painful, because it wasn't. There was a ton of great moments in it. But it just wasn't enough. I don't think it was enough for him or for me. And so that being said, I just had to take a good look at myself and ask myself, why was I staying in this, for one? Like, what was it about me that I didn't see that it was okay to walk away from this, right? For him and for me, because I genuinely wanted happiness for him and for me. And so that was an incredible journey. That was I feel like the dark night of the soul. That was when my wilderness season happened, and I began to question everything in my life. One, my identity was tied to being a wife. My identity was tied to being a mom and a nurse. And I didn't, like, completely disrupted. It felt like the rug underneath me was pulled. And here I was in like this abyss going, what do I do now? And let me just tell you, 4 or 5 months after that happened, there was betrayal in a lot of it. And people that I thought were my friends were not my friends. And I felt this heavy, heavy weight of shame on me, and just felt like I wanted to lock myself up and not come out, because everybody knew what was going on. That moment when your whole life is put out on broadcast and everybody knows what's going on, and you've been sitting underneath it, and then all of a sudden everything's exposed, and your kids, everything. And I wanted to run and hide and never come out. And I had to start questioning that. And you know what? There was this one moment that my son looked at me and said, why do you feel bad? What did you do wrong? And I had to get curious about that comment, because how was I blaming myself? And that was what I did for so long. I was putting this pressure on me, and it was me. And so that was a huge wake-up call for me, that things were not happening to me. They were actually helping me get through this season of my life, and that happiness didn't come until I got through this. It was on the other side of this. And so I just didn't realize the prayers I had been praying for was actually this. It just didn't look the way that I thought that it was going to look. And so I went through recovery. I hired my coach. It was that same year, February of 2019, I started working with Dr. Ed. And he actually was I call him my champion through that, because I couldn't switch my mindset on what was through what was happening to me and really start putting the pieces together. He helped me so much get an accurate perception of what was happening in my life. Because to be honest with you, I felt like everything in my life blew up and that I was to blame for that. I started to grow, and I just didn't realize that as I was growing, I was outgrowing the environment that I was living in. And it wasn't serving me anymore. And I didn't have to be ashamed of that. It was okay. And it was actually, it took a lot of courage for me to actually, I realized how much courage it actually took me to actually decide to see what was going to happen and walk away from that. And then during it, when it wasn't changing, and I really thought, I prayed and I really thought, oh, God's going to go help him get better and we're going to get back together. And no way is there going to be a divorce. And there was a divorce. I had to make that decision. And I don't know, maybe some of you guys have felt this before, but sometimes you just need all this proof. Tell me that I'm doing the right thing. Tell me that I'm doing the right thing. And I'll tell you, you don't want to know that answer when things still continue to be revealed to you and showed to you. And you're like, okay, I'm going to take the breaks here and I don't want to see anymore. I know what I need to do. And I think for me in that season was trusting that gut feeling that I have. And when we talk, when I love talking about trauma, because I love talking about that mind body connection and how it's our heart, but it's also our gut. So it's our gut, our heart, and our head. But we usually start with the head, right? And we don't want to listen to the gut, right? But I knew that this was what had to happen. So I didn't take, it was probably 3 years into it, maybe 4 years, that I actually really started to give myself a lot of praise for the courage that it took me to stand in that and to not say anything. Can I say that? Like, I wanted to go and prove my point to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I had went to hell and back and had been drugged through the mud. And I wanted to go out there and tell my side of the story. And this was something for me, I have, and you know this, Michelle, I have a really strong faith. And for me, I just wanted to, God, I want to prove my point. I want to say my side of the story. And it was really like, no, you're not going to do that. You know what? Everything that must come out, the things that need to be said are going to come out, and you don't have to be a part of it. And that part of my life and that part of my journey helped me grow in so many ways. And it actually strengthened my relationship with my kids, because I didn't have to prove my point to anyone. I didn't have to get validated for behavior that was happening. It just played out in its own way. And I think sometimes we want to do that. We want the satisfaction of being able to be right.
Yep.
And being able to control the things that are happening in our life. And I just had to make sure that everybody knew my side. And man, when you're told to not say anything and just let things go the way that they're going to go, I can't tell you how many times I scream in my pillow and just put it on my stomach and just punched it on my gut, just to get the energy out of me and what I really wanted to do. So there were so many things that I did privately that I didn't realize were strength, because it's easy for us to come out and bash everyone. And I could have made everybody take my side if I shared my story, but I didn't need to. It was playing out to the public, right? So that was another lesson that I learned, that I didn't need to control the way that this was going to come, the way that this was happening. All I could do was control me. And the only thing that I had control over was my behavior, the character that I wanted to keep, my relationship with my kids. And I'll be honest with you, I did not want my kids to go through what I felt like I went through as a child, going through my parents' divorce. I wanted my kids to still have that relationship with their father and
Yeah.
to find their way of having a relationship together. And I didn't want to play any part in that or affecting how that was going to turn out. And it's very easy for us to do that, right? Like we could prove our point. And what good does that do to bash the other one? You know, for me as a child, it blurred boundaries for me.
Yeah.
When it came to caregivers that you actually love. And so I just couldn't bear to do that. And you know, I wonder right now, talking to you guys, if that was the lesson, was to learn that that wasn't productive. It didn't help me as a child. And I wasn't going to cause the same pain for my kids. I made that decision very early on. And so looking at my life now, meeting my coach, I tell you that he always reminds me that when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And so it's so funny how I met him, right? I go into this networking group and had no idea in the next year and a half that I would be facing a divorce. And I go in there because I had joined this multi-level marketing company, and they had challenged us to go out and find new ways of networking with people, right? I'd never been part of a networking group in my life. And so I walk in there and I'm like, what in the world are you doing? Like, there goes the thoughts, right? And the self-talk, right? What are you doing in here? You don't have any business here, right? And so I just felt so out of place with people who were entrepreneurs and doing different things in life. And I'm like, what? But you know what it did, Michelle? It opened up a whole different lifestyle for me. I thought, oh my gosh, there's people in the world that are doing things different than I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And so I was very intrigued by that. And I honestly think that that's when things started to happen for me. I started to see, because this was a year and a half before I started going into my separation and divorce, but I started to see that different things were possible than I'd ever seen before. And that there was something that was pulling in me. And so he said his 30-second commercial in that networking group. And I swear to you, to this day, that was the first time. I was just a visitor that day. And I said, when I have the money to work with him, I'm going to hire him. I'm going to hire him to be my coach. And so it took me a year and a half. And if any of you guys know Mel Robbins, do you guys know Mel Robbins?
Oh yeah, big time.
I had been introduced to her and I read her 5-second rule book. And it was a 5-second rule moment when my mentor, Dr. Ed, said, don't make it about the money. And I just went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes. And I said, somehow the money is going to come. The money's going to come. And for me to work with him, I don't have to worry about how it's going to come. It's going to come. And he has changed my life. He's helped me change my life. He was a gift. He was a gift from God to me in the moment that I needed it. And I don't know how I would have made it through this season of my life if I hadn't had that mentorship and that guidance. And it's so funny because there's part of me that at first almost needed a Dr. Ed as almost like a father figure for me. Yeah. And I didn't recognize that at first, but he was very safe for me. And so what I'm saying to that is, if you guys are in that, you find yourself in this type of season of your life, there is help out there for you. You don't have to do it alone. And sometimes you do. Sometimes it is necessary to have a mentor or someone that can see things in you that you don't see. And see when he could see when I was talking from a program of mine or from years of and decades of limiting beliefs that I was believing about myself, that I didn't know, and I still do that. There's still times where I recognize that I'm in that pattern again. And sometimes I'll just tell you, there's sometimes where it feels really good. And I just want to retreat and go back to my shell for a day because it feels safe there. right?
Yeah.
But I can't stay there. And so those are the things that I've learned.
Yeah.
So today I feel like I'm living with so much more freedom and so much more fulfillment in my life. And it's not because I have this brand new, wonderful relationship with somebody or anything like that. It's because I have this really good relationship with myself. And I've been able to give her grace when she feels like you're being too hard on yourself, or who's saying that to you. And mostly it's me talking to me. Mostly it's not others that are judging me, it's me judging me. And so when I can differentiate from that, or when I'm taking something personal from someone, I can look back and go, oh, and really just ask questions. Well, that's not them thinking this of me, Terry. Why might you be thinking this about you? And so it just gives me a moment to stop, reflect, and maybe ask some deeper questions, because it's never about anyone else. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would would love for people to take away from this, is that our journey is our journey, and the things that we face are only for us to take a deeper look at ourselves. It's not for anything else. It's not to make us feel bad. It's not to make us feel shame about ourselves or regrets. It's just really an opportunity for us to move forward, but we don't always see it that way.
One thing that really stood out to me, Terry, when you were talking, well, first was about just love in general. We loved each other the way we knew, the best we knew how. I think, when we're constantly being inundated with all of these images of what love is on movies and all this fairy tale type stuff, first of all, it's like we're really hard on ourselves. I think we're always comparing ourselves to others in regards to love and all that, which I think is, the reason why people give up so quickly, because it's not what they're seeing on TV or whatever. And relationships are tough. And I know that the word tough or hard is not things we're supposed to be saying in the mindfulness world, but they're tough because of all of those things around us that have skewed our perception of it.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciate you saying that. But the other thing this is not funny. This is just something that came up when you're talking about looking at yourself closely and making the decision that you have to change you or whatever. And maybe the person that you're with at the time doesn't move with you in that, and you grow apart. Look at Nelson Mandela. He was in prison for 20 plus years. And it was able to do that peacefully, and gets out of prison and gets a divorce. I mean, it's like, if that doesn't tell you how hard relationships are, I don't know what does. Because it's like so difficult to grow at the same level and all that thing. And so I really appreciate you saying that, and then really honoring yourself in that. And again, it's nothing about your ex-husband being, bad or wrong or whatever. It's just different. It's just you're going on a path, and he's going this way and you're going that way, kind of thing. And you're trying to honor yourself. So I so appreciate you bringing that up. And I know,
and to say that he was a great human.
Yeah.
He loved my kids. He loved me the best that he could. And I remember praying about that, and that being revealed to me, that it wasn't you. It was he did the best he could. And the best he could, he really did love you, Terry. When you can look back and you start to grow, you start to begin to have compassion for others and where they are in their journey. And it really isn't personal. So it really wasn't about me. It was what he could give, and so I we have a relationship now, and I'm so grateful for that. And we can be around our grandkids and our kids and be able to respect one another. And I'm really grateful for that. That took a while. That took a good 2.5 years before I could even speak to him. But you're right. And I read this book, and if anybody, one thing I don't ever wish on anyone is a divorce, because it is one of the most painful things that you will ever go through. It doesn't matter what it is. You've shared moments together, and it's painful. It just is. It is what it is. And it's not a fun experience. But there's a book called Sacred Marriage. And one of the things I read in it was, marriage was never meant to make you happy. And I don't think relationships are meant to make us happy. I think relationships are there to make us grow.
To flourish.
I think
Yeah.
we learn more about ourselves in those relationships more than we can ever. And when you're in a relationship with an imperfect person as well, like it's almost crazy how we're paired up, right? The very things that irritate us of each other, you can almost guarantee that you're going to meet someone that's going to challenge those.
Yep.
I think when we can normalize that and go,
Yeah.
okay, here it is, and not begrudge it or like fight with it, but go, oh, okay, well, what was that about me that's making me feel this way? I think that we can have a greater respect for those that we do relationships with. And it doesn't even mean marriage relationship.
Yes,
it could be
any
a friendship. It could be a coworker. But there's something in relationships that's always reflecting something in us.
Yes. Relationships are not there to bring, like you said, you're not trying to find happiness in life because of a relationship. You're trying to just flourish. It's almost like you should be trying to focus on what makes you happy, and then the relationship is just an added bonus, man. It's just it allows you to flourish in life, and I've not been great at relationships in the past, but again, we'll talk about my story another time, and I have beat myself up about that. But the more that I grow, the older I get, the more I understand that I have a lot of I can be even a better version of myself if I'm in a relationship, if I choose to do so, because I have a lot to offer, and I feel like I can provide some quality to somebody's life,
And I feel so grateful being in this season of my life right now, because I feel like I'm still growing and I'm still learning through, and I will forever be doing that. And there's things that still come up, and I'm like, oh, it showed up again, but I recognize it, right? But I just think that we grow so much, and for me to get in a marriage in my early 20s. Sometimes I don't know that we are not going to be the same person in 20 years. Nope. And so it is so important that when we're looking for that relationship, special relationship in our life, to keep that in mind, that you might not be the same person today, that you're not going to be the same person in 20 years. No, exactly. And is this person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, are they going to complement me and grow with me? Or not.
Yeah. On the other hand, I have friends that have been married since high school.
Yeah,
sure. They've been married 40 years, and they are very happy together. And that just blows my mind.
But do you get to see them and like witness them growing with each other? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those are the marriages that I love spending time with people. Yeah. When they're not telling you how happy they are and all this stuff, but when they really tell you that they struggle sometimes.
Yep.
And that and this is how we work through it. Those are the marriages that I prayed that I could have spent time with, to be able to see what that looked like.
Well, and I think the part that you say about work through it, they are work.
They are
they
work.
They don't just happen. You have to work. You have to have compassion. You have to have empathy. You have to, it's probably I feel like it's the hardest job I have, quite honestly.
Yeah. Well, and I think culture does that, right? They put so much emphasis on the wedding day and the bridesmaids and the dress and all this kind of stuff. But then you look at people that have been married 50 years, and it was not anything about the wedding day. We put more work into that special day than we put into a 50-year marriage. And man, there are so many things you go through in a marriage.
Yep.
That just reminds us again, Terry, the fact that, it's not about being perfect in life. We keep putting ourselves to these standards that we have to live up to perfection, and we have to do all, again, I keep saying keeping up with the Joneses like I did last episode, but it's like we're constantly comparing ourselves to that relationship or this, whatever, and everything. And it's like, it's not about perfection. It's about being present. It's about having experiences. It's about, learning about yourself so that you can be a better mate to somebody else. I used to be very explosive in my relationships, but that explosiveness and that anger that I was experiencing had nothing to do with that other person. No, it was all this crap inside of me that I didn't do anything about. And so that contributed to me not having great relationships, because I didn't have the self-awareness around it at the time, but now that I do, it's still hard for me sometimes, because and I just try to think about how I could really provide some value and to somebody's life as a companion to someone, and they could do the same for me if I choose to do that, because I've been single for a long time. And you know, you get set in your ways and then you don't do anything. And I'm like, I could really have this great relationship if I chose to get out there and do that. So
well, and to speak on that, you know, we're relational beings. That is, it is in our nature to have relationships with people. And when a lot of pain has come through relationships, whether it be from our primary caregivers, our spouses, our kids, whatever it be, there is a degree of fear going into them. So we're created for them, and we must have them to flourish. But then there's also this fear. So the very thing we want is the very thing we fear sometimes. And 100%. So, and it is when there's hard things that have happened, and it doesn't always have to be, I just want to make it clear to everybody, trauma doesn't have to be something horrific that happened. It can be living under a mother who struggled with her own mental health issues. It can be just primary needs that were not met, can cause, for a long time, can cause this traumatic stuff in your body where you don't feel safe. It doesn't have to be a traumatic event. And I want to really normalize that. And I want people to hear that, because I think sometimes, and I don't think, I know that we can dumb down our story sometimes and go, oh, well, mine isn't that bad because that didn't happen to me. But your body doesn't see it the same way. It still sees it as you not being safe. And I'm going to protect you. I'm going to just show you the world is going to look different to you. People are going to look different to you. Relationships are going to look different to you because I'm going to keep you safe. So we have to keep that in mind.
I think we also have to keep in mind that if there's anybody listening to this and you think, well, I'm a mess, or I'm having these experiences, I don't want anybody to think that because, you know, Terry mentioned the fact that she started in 2019 and it's, you know, 6 years later, whatever, and now she's finally having this. Don't feel overwhelmed that it's going to take too long for you to try to get well. This is a journey. This is forever. This is until you're no longer in this physical form on this physical planet. This is the way it's going to be. So don't feel overwhelmed. It's just small little teeny steps. It's small little teeny things. So I don't want you to get caught in the thing, oh God, Terry's been on this journey 6 years. It's going to take me forever to get through this. You know, if you're listening and you feel like you're a mess or what, we totally get it. And Terry and Kim can both, you know, share their experiences as well. But, you know, I still have the thoughts. I still have moments every single day. I have awareness around the fact that I'm not giving myself grace, or this dark thought comes into my head that I've had in the past. And that the key is just to recognize it and, you know, call bullshit on it. You know, that's really all you do.
100%.
Well, and that's the growth, is when you recognize it, because for how many years did we not recognize it? And all of a sudden now we do, we're aware of it. So that you should actually celebrate that.
Yes. If I had
here it is.
Kim, has there been a challenge for you, or an unraveling that's happened the last 3 or 4 days? It's been something been challenged with.
Yep. Just little overwhelm, letting go of my virtual assistant, and, you know, kind of taking everything on, and some doubt about what I can do, what I can't do. And did some energy work with my coach yesterday, which was very, very helpful. To kind of just help release some of that stuff. And the celebration was, I've had 2 new cases in the last 2 days. So that's, you know, all good, but always being challenged. My husband and I had some challenges this weekend, but we just talked them through, and we just kind of laugh about it because we're getting to know each other better, and kind of what, you know, triggers us, and what, you know, and we just kind of laugh through it. Sometimes we're like, oh, here we are again. And, you know, but every time you get there, you that awareness, you just kind of work through it a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And laugh about it a little bit. It's either that or cry, and I'd rather laugh.
I had an experience this week, and I have them every single week, sometimes daily, with my mom. And so, one of the things that I've been able to do is when I I really examine how it is I said something or how I'm feeling at the moment. And I always have to say, who is showing up here? Is this you, Terry? Is this 52-year-old Terry right now talking to her mother? Or is this the child that felt like she was hurt by her mom? And it's always the latter. And so getting myself back, so I constantly work on that. Like you said, Kimberly, it's like, oh, there she is again. And so, but then also not shaming that little part of me. And going, she's a part of me, and befriending her and loving her, showing her that there's nothing, that your mom loved you. There was nothing intentional or ill will that was happening in your life at that little young age. So you don't have to be reactive or be mean or act like a little brat. Cause sometimes I am acting like a little brat. I'm like, wow.
I was going to say, for those of you who don't know Kim, she has a caregiving registry where she matches caregivers with those that need in-home services. And the thing that I am struggling with, Kim, that you taught me, she's also a dementia specialist. And so I have listened to some of her videos in regards to dementia care, but I'm taking care of my cousin in South Dakota who has dementia. And Kim taught me what is going on with their brains. And so it changed the way that I talked to her, because I was getting very frustrated with her, with asking the question 1,000 different times and being so confused and, can't figure out how to work a remote. And I have to show her how to work a remote for her TV 25 times a day kind of thing. And I have completely changed my communication with her because of that, because of what Kim has taught me in regards to that. And I realize now that I just need to come in with love and care and just be a loving energy for her. And if she's feeling something, I just acknowledge it. And I just, and she's had some issues with her caregiver that she currently has. There's been some clashing going on, and I'm just there for her. And so it's like, it's every part of your life. These things can be of benefit,
Yeah. And my mom is struggling with memory issues too. So I get that. And sometimes I have to remind myself of that and to show up for her with love.
Yep.
And not think about the things that once were, or the pain that all the stories that I created, right? They weren't stories my mom created. And when I can really look at my mom and I listen to little things that she says, I'm like, she really did love me.
Yeah,
she really did.
The best she could, right? It was her first time being a human too.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I love that. I love you telling your story, Terry. And we're going to have the same thing happen next week, you guys. I'll be myself or Kimberly telling her story. And again, we'll all have our own individual stories, but it's so important to share these stories because there's people out there who have gone through a divorce or are going through a divorce and can really relate to what Terry has said. And I just hope that you got some wisdom from that. I know that Terry was going to talk about a challenge for all the listeners out there this week. Terry, do you want to challenge our listeners at all, and something that maybe can help them?
And I challenge myself. I want to say that I challenge myself with this same thing every single day. And it's to actually listen to those things that you tell yourself during the day and pay attention to the feeling that you have. When you start feeling disconnected or like uncomfortable or pain, or your thoughts start to race, or maybe you're feeling your heart rate go up, to just stop for a moment and say, what am I thinking? What is happening around me that is creating something in me? Because that's what's going on. And it's usually something that we're believing or a story that we've told ourselves over and over again. So paying attention to those thoughts. I want to just share a really funny thing. So I used to get in trouble a lot. Just rebellious little Terry. I was very rebellious because but I know why. I was an angry little girl. I was a hurt little girl that became an angry teenager, right?
Yep.
And adult. And so I used to get in trouble in workplaces because of my behavior sometimes, the way I would talk to people. And when I get called to the manager's office for something, there is this moment that just my heart sinks and I'm just like, what did you do now? That's what I'm saying about the things that you tell yourself. Cause it's like, and I have to recognize it as I'm walking. Cause if I get called into my boss's office, he'll go, hey, Terry, can you come to my office really quick? I want to talk to you about something. And immediately, immediately it happens. It still happens. And I literally have to take a deep breath. Sometimes I have to just close my eyes and I have to go, you didn't do anything wrong. Everything is okay. Like, chill out and just take a breath. Just breathe for a second. And I go in there and it's nothing. But that is what I'm saying. When something happens in your life or somebody says something or you're faced with an experience, what are the things that you're saying to yourself?
I had a psychiatrist back in the day used to call it your elephant person. And he would record this is cassette tapes. I'm aging myself. We had cassette tapes back in the day. He would record our sessions and then he wanted me to listen to them so I could hear myself talk. But he called it your elephant person, that thing that's in your head that says bad things about you. He called it your elephant person. So I still call it that to this day, my elephant person, because it's like those negative thoughts. I know, right? When you can separate yourself from it, you say, this is a separate entity than me. That's how I look at it. It's your elephant person is somebody different than Michelle. And it's like, even though it's still in my own head, it's a different energy or a different entity.
So there's a really good book called by Michael Singer.
Yeah.
And he talks about that. It's called The Untethered Soul.
Yes.
I believe that's
you mentioned that last episode. Yeah.
I'm reading it again.
What's up?
I'm reading it again currently.
Yeah. And so, man, that book was one of the things that really catapulted me in my journey when he actually talks about listening to the voice. He said, just pay attention that you're observing it, that it's not you talking, that you're actually watching the talking take place. And I was like, oh my gosh, because we can start thinking that is us, that these are my thoughts. I'm the one thinking them, right? It can be so easy to feel that way. But man, when he mentioned that, and then I could take this bird's eye view and just step out of it and go, who says so?
Who says, right. And a lot of those, I'm sure that's available on Audible too, for those of you who want to listen to it when you're working out or when you're driving. You can, I'm sure you can get that on Audible or one of those and listen to it. You know, I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I'm driving, especially on a long trip. And it can be, and sometimes just even when I'm working, I just listen to that kind of stuff because it just, stuff happens. But thanks. So guys, this has been awesome, Terry. Thank you for sharing your story. This has been it explains a lot about you in such a wonderful way because I've known you since, you guys first got together and were pregnant with your first child all the way to now and had lots of experiences. So it just makes so much sense when I listen to you talk about that and learn some new little nuggets about you that I didn't know, things that you were thinking and I didn't know about. So I'm just excited. And next week, Kimberly is going to share her story next week, our next episode. Exciting, which is a different story. And I'll share mine after that. And then we're going to have our common coach on. The same he's referring to. We'll have him on after that to talk about, his experience.
Gosh, can you imagine? He has worked with all three of us.
He has. I know. So true. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening or watching. We really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share with somebody who you think might get some benefit from this. We really appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.